My name is Tessa Mayers. I'm 31 years old. And 2 years ago, my father disowned me by text message. 14 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, my phone buzzed with 6 words from my dad. "You are no longer my daughter." That was it. No call, no explanation, no conversation. And then, one by one, the rest of them followed. My mother, my brother, 3 of my aunts, every single one of them backed him up, because I refused to add 4 extra names to my wedding guest list. 4 names, 4 kids I'd met a handful of times. That was all it took to lose my entire family overnight. But the part that stayed with me, the part that still woke me up at 3:00 in the morning 2 years later, wasn't the text itself. It was what happened when he came back. Because my father didn't come back because he missed me. He came back because he needed my signature on one document. And when I sent him back 4 words, his entire retirement plan collapsed. Before I take you back to that night, take a second to like and subscribe. And if you want to, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where people are listening from. Now let me take you back to a Friday evening in September, the night before my wedding, and the last time I heard my father's voice for 2 years. But first, I need to tell you about my grandmother. Her name was Ruth Mayers. She was the kind of woman who kept a jar of butterscotch candies on the kitchen counter and called everyone sweetheart, even the mailman. She lived alone in a little Cape Cod house outside Zanesville, Ohio, with a garden that produced more tomatoes than any one person could possibly eat. She gave the extras away in brown paper bags with handwritten notes tucked inside. She was the only person in my family who never made love feel conditional. When I was 27, Grandma Ruth was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. They found it late. She'd been coughing for months, but she kept insisting it was just dust from the garden. By the time I drove down to see her, she was already on oxygen, sitting in her recliner with a blanket over her knees, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. I stayed for 3 weeks. I slept on her couch. I made soup she barely touched. I helped her to the bathroom. I sat beside her while old game shows played softly in the background. One afternoon, maybe 4 days before she passed, she grabbed my hand and squeezed harder than I thought she still could. "I set something aside for you," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you it belongs to them." I didn't understand what she meant. I thought maybe she was talking about her rings, or maybe the house. I kissed her forehead and told her to rest. She died on a Thursday morning in March. I was holding her hand when it happened. And it wasn't until 2 years later, 2 years after my wedding, 2 years after that text message, that I finally understood what she meant. Grandma Ruth had named me the sole beneficiary on her retirement account. Not my father, not my uncle, me, and that one decision changed everything. My parents divorced when I was 14. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no plates thrown against walls. Just my mother sitting at the kitchen table one morning, telling me and my little brother Kyle that Dad was moving into an apartment across town. Kyle cried. I didn't. I just ate my cereal and went to school. Back then, my father wasn't a bad dad. He was strict, the kind of man who expected a firm handshake and a "yes, sir." But he showed up. He came to my volleyball games. He helped me with algebra even though he hated math. He drove me to Grandma Ruth's every other weekend without complaining. Gary Mayers was a decent father. He just wasn't a flexible one. Then he met Jolene. I was 20 when he brought her to Thanksgiving. She was 10 years younger than him, loud, polished, and always smiling just a little too long. She had 4 kids from her first marriage, Cody, Amber, Tyler, and Lily, and they came tumbling out of her minivan like a traveling circus. And just like that, my father had a whole new family. Things changed fast. Dad started calling Jolene's kids my kids asterisk. He wanted me to call them my siblings. He expected birthday cards, Christmas presents, Sunday dinners, ballet recitals, graduation parties, all of it. And for a long time, I said yes. I drove 2 hours to watch Amber in a dance recital. I bought Tyler a skateboard I couldn't afford. I babysat Lily 3 weekends in a row so Dad and Jolene could take a beach trip. Every time he asked, I showed up. And every time I showed up, my father wrote it down somewhere in his mind as proof that I always would. He never asked what it cost me. He never asked whether I wanted to. He just assumed. And for 9 years, he was right. Jolene was smart about it, I'll give her that. She rarely confronted me directly. Instead, she worked through my father, feeding him a steady stream of complaints over the years. If I missed one of the kids' events because of work, Jolene told him I didn't think her children mattered. If I forgot to comment on a family photo she posted online, she told him I was rejecting the family. Every missed dinner, every late text, every time I prioritized my own adult life over one of her expectations, she filed it away. And my father treated her complaints like evidence. Your daughter doesn't accept this family, she told him. I know because he repeated it to me almost word for word. Dad, that's not true, I said once. I just had to work. Jolene is my wife, he said. Her kids are my kids. If you can't accept that, then we have a problem. I do accept it. I just can't be everywhere. You don't get to choose which parts of this family you belong to, Tessa. And there it was, the ultimatum, all in or all out. In my father's mind, loyalty was absolute. There was no room for boundaries, no room for nuance, no room for a grown woman with a job, a life, and limits. I should have seen what was coming, but I kept making the same mistake. I kept believing that if I stayed reasonable, eventually he would too. Then Marcus and I got engaged. It was June. Warm, green, easy. We planned a small wedding for September, 60 guests total, at a farm-to-table restaurant outside Columbus. We paid for every bit of it ourselves. No help from my family, no help from his. Just our savings and a lot of careful planning. The guest list was tight, 30 seats for Marcus's side, 30 for mine, every chair accounted for. 3 weeks before the wedding, my father called. You need to add Jolene's kids to the guest list. I was sitting at my desk at work, staring at a spreadsheet. Dad, the venue is full. We only have 60 seats. Then cut someone. I'm not cutting Marcus's family to add 4 people I've seen maybe 6 times in 10 years. Those are my children, Tessa. They're Jolene's children. And I already offered to include them at the after-party. An after-party, he snapped, like they're not good enough for the actual wedding. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. No. What I meant is that Marcus and I are paying for this ourselves, and the numbers are final. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. Either all of them come or I don't. I went quiet. I let the silence sit for 5 seconds, then 10, and finally I said very calmly, I'm sorry you feel that way. He hung up. That was Thursday evening. I sat in my car after work for 20 minutes, staring through the windshield, telling myself he'd cool down. He always made threats when he was angry. He always expected the other person to fold first. I told myself this would be the same. I was wrong. The next morning, 14 hours before my wedding, I was standing in Marcus's bathroom in my robe, holding my dress up one last time and checking the hem. My phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced down. Dad, 6 words. You are no longer my daughter. No greeting, no call. No, we need to talk. Just 6 words. I read them twice, then a third time. I kept waiting for the screen to light up again. A follow-up, a correction, anything, nothing came. I sat down on the bathroom floor, still holding my dress in my hands, satin pooled across my knees. I didn't cry, I just kept thinking the same thing. He didn't even call. 31 years and he couldn't pick up the phone. Marcus found me 20 minutes later. He opened the door, saw me on the floor, and didn't ask a single question. He just sat down beside me, took the phone from my hand, and read the message. He stared at it for a long time. Then he set the phone face down on the counter and put his arm around me. We don't have to do anything about this today, he said. I know, we're still getting married tomorrow. I know, and he's going to have to live with this. I leaned against him and closed my eyes. The bathroom smelled like tile cleaner and his soap. Outside, I could hear a sprinkler ticking somewhere across the street. And then my phone started buzzing again. Not my father, everyone else. First my mother, Your father has a point. You should apologize before it's too late. No, are you okay? No, what happened? Just a verdict. Then Kyle. Way to ruin everything, sis. Then Aunt Patty. You've always been selfish, Tessa, even as a little girl. Then Aunt Linda. Jalene's kids are family now, whether you like it or not. And then Aunt Brenda sent a disappointed face, emoji followed by 7 words that hit hardest of all. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. I read every message. Nobody called, nobody asked for my side. Nobody said, wait, what happened? They just lined up behind my father like they'd been waiting for the signal. Marcus watched my face as I scrolled. Who's texting? Everyone. What are they saying? I handed him the phone. He read through the messages, one after another, jaw tightening more with each one. Not one of them asked what actually happened, he said. No, not one. So I did the most practical thing I could think of. I took screenshots of everything, my father's text, my mother's, Kyle's, my aunt's, one by one. Then I powered my phone off, put it in the nightstand drawer, and shut the drawer. I'm going to take a shower, I said. And then I'm going to try on my dress one more time. Marcus nodded. The night before, just an hour before my father sent that text, Jalene had called me. She never called me directly. In 11 years, I could count our one-on-one conversations on one hand. So when I saw her name on my screen, I already knew it was bad. Tessa, we need to talk about tomorrow. The rehearsal dinner is at 6, I said. You and Dad are already on the list. My kids are crying because they weren't invited to your wedding. They were invited to the after-party. An after-party, she repeated, dripping with insult. Like they're second class. The venue only holds 60 people. They are your father's children. I understand that, but the guest list is full. Then move people around. Cut one of your little friends. Jalene, I'm not rearranging my wedding the night before. Then she went quiet for half a second and said, very calmly, then I'll tell your father exactly how you feel about his family. She said it like someone laying down a winning card. And 30 minutes later, my father sent the text. She handed him a version of the story where I'd treated his family like second-class citizens, and he believed her. Or maybe he just wanted an excuse to. The first person I called after his text was my mother. I know, you'd think I would have known better. But there's something in you, no matter how old you are, that still reaches for your mom when the ground gives out beneath you. She answered on the second ring. Mom, Dad just disowned me by text message. A pause, then an exhale. Honey, can't you just add them? It's one day. Mom, he told me I'm no longer his daughter. He's upset. He'll calm down. But you need to apologize first. Apologize for what? For making this harder than it needs to be. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. My wedding is tomorrow, I said. He disowned me over 4 seats. It's not about the seats, Tessa, it's about respect. Respect for who? There was a pause, then I heard a game show in the background. She hadn't even muted the television. Your father helps me with certain things, she said carefully. My insurance, some bills, I can't really afford to, she stopped. But she didn't need to finish the sentence. I heard all of it. My mother chose her stability over me, not because she was evil, because it was cheaper. I hope you can live with that, I said. Tessa, don't be dramatic. I hung up, and I didn't call her again for 730 days. Kyle called 20 minutes later. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me still believed he might surprise me. He didn't, just do what Dad says, he said. You're making everyone miserable. Did you read what he sent me? Yeah, but you know how he is. Just apologize and move on. He disowned me. He's bluffing. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. Then I guess you're on your own. He hung up. The aunts came in a group text after that. Patty, Linda, and Brenda, my mother's sisters. They had my father's version of Jalene's version of the story, which by then barely resembled reality. And sitting on the edge of Marcus's bed, reading message after message, I felt something in me shift. Not rage, something quieter, final. The realization that this family had never actually needed the truth before deciding who I was. The speed of it told me everything. They were ready. They had always been ready. I looked at Marcus and said, I'm getting married tomorrow, that's the only thing that matters. And the next day I did. The wedding was beautiful, I need you to know that. The restaurant had string lights across the patio and wildflower arrangements in mason jars. The weather was perfect, 72 degrees, clear sky, the kind of September evening that feels almost staged. Marcus's side filled every seat. His parents, his sister, cousins, friends, co-workers, my side was mostly silence. Bria, my college roommate, 2 friends from work. A few people who loved me enough to show up, and then 6 empty chairs at the table reserved for my family. White napkins folded like fans, water glasses full, place cards untouched, Gary, Diane. Kyle, Patty, Linda, Brenda. Halfway through cocktail hour, the restaurant manager quietly asked if she should clear the settings. Marcus looked at the table, then at me. "Leave them," he said. He was right. Those empty chairs said more than any speech could have. Before the ceremony, Marcus's father, Richard Webb, came over to me. I hadn't asked anyone to walk me down the aisle. I'd already decided I would do it alone. But Richard stood there in his suit, gentle and steady, and said, "If you'd let me, I would be honored." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. And he offered me his arm. We walked together past Marcus's family, past the empty seats, past the place cards no one would ever claim. I danced my first dance with Marcus to a song my grandmother used to hum when she watered her garden. I didn't tell anyone that. That part was just for me and her. At the end of the night, Marcus held me close and said, "You didn't lose your family tonight. They lost you." And then we didn't speak about my father again for 2 years. Those 2 years weren't dramatic. They were quiet, and the quiet was the best part. Marcus and I bought a little house in Westerville, 3 bedrooms, fenced yard, enough kitchen counter space for me to finally cook without balancing ingredients on top of the microwave. I got promoted to senior accountant at the distribution company where I'd worked since college. Marcus became a supervisor at his HVAC firm. We saved money. We built a life. And then our daughter arrived. Nora, born on a Wednesday in April, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with Marcus's dark eyes and a scream powerful enough to rattle windows. I held her against my chest in the delivery room and whispered, "Nobody is ever going to make you earn love." During those 2 years, I never contacted my father. I didn't block him. Blocking felt too active, too much like performing a boundary for an audience. I just stopped participating. If he had called to apologize, I would have listened. He never did. My mother sent 2 texts in those 2 years. Both said, "Thinking of you." Neither one mentioned the wedding. Neither one mentioned the disowning. Neither one said "I'm sorry." I read them and closed the app. 6 months after the wedding, I started therapy. During one session, Dr. Adler asked me, "What would it take for you to reconnect with your family?" I thought for a while. Then I said, "An apology that doesn't begin with the word asterisk, but..." She nodded and wrote something down. Around that same time, I started getting annual statements in the mail from a financial management firm. At the top of the page, Inherited IRA Beneficiary, Tessa A. Mayers, Grandma Ruth's retirement account. I filed the statement away in a folder labeled *important and didn't think much about it. Until one Sunday dinner at the Webb's house. Marcus's parents had us over every other Sunday. Richard would grill or roast something. Patricia would set the table with real napkins, and we'd eat together while Nora banged a spoon against her high chair tray. That night, I mentioned the statement casually. "Got another annual statement from Grandma Ruth's retirement account," I said. Richard set down his fork. "Inherited IRA, I think so. Do you know what that means legally?" "Not really." I assumed it was estate paperwork. Richard leaned back slightly, shifting into his old lawyer voice, calm, precise, impossible to ignore. "If your grandmother named you directly as beneficiary, that account does not go through probate. It doesn't belong to the estate, it belongs to you." I blinked. "So my dad can't touch it, not without your written consent." I stared at him. "Why would he want it?" Richard cut into his roast and said, almost absently, Because some people mistake asterisk family asterisk for asterisk eventually mine asterisk. I filed that away too. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Gary Mayers. I was wiping mashed banana off the counter while Nora sat in her high chair making a mess of the rest. I froze. The phone rang 4 times. I watched it until it went to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the notification appeared. I hit play. Hey, Tessie. I hadn't heard him use that nickname since high school. It's Dad. I've been thinking about you a lot, about everything. I miss you, sweetheart. I'd really love to talk. Call me when you get a chance. I played it twice. Then I set the phone down and looked at my daughter who had banana in one eyebrow. When Marcus got home, I played it for him. What do you want to do? He asked. I want to know why now. Could be genuine. Could be, I said, but genuine people don't disappear for 2 years and suddenly come back using your childhood nickname. I didn't call him back. 3 days later, he called again. This time I answered. Tessie, I'm so glad you picked up. Hi, Dad. I've had a lot of time to think. I know I handled the wedding wrong. I want to make things right. I said nothing. Silence has a way of making people show their hand, and he did. There's also a small paperwork thing from Grandma's estate, he said. Just a signature. Nothing complicated. The lawyer says we need your sign-off. There it was, tucked right behind I miss you. What paperwork? I asked. Something with her retirement account. Just a formality. Which account? The IRA, you're listed on it. We just need your signature to move things along. To where? A pause. To get everything squared away. For the family, that phrase again, always used like a key, always meant to open whatever door he wanted. I'll think about it, I said. Great, and maybe we can get together. I'd like to meet Marcus properly, and I heard about the baby. You heard, Kyle mentioned it. Her name is Nora, she's 6 months old. Silence. That's a beautiful name, he said. I hung up and sat at the kitchen table for a long time. He hadn't called because he missed me. He had called because he needed my name on a piece of paper. And the warmth in his voice, the Tessie, the sweetheart, the soft regret, that was just packaging. Within a week, the campaign began. Jolene texted first. I know we've had our differences, but families should find their way back to each other. We all make mistakes. I'd love for the kids to meet baby Nora. Can we start fresh? I read it twice. Not one apology. Then my mother called, suddenly bright and hopeful. Isn't it wonderful your father is reaching out? This is your chance to fix things. He mentioned paperwork. I'm sure that's just a small thing. The important part is that he wants to reconnect. Did he ask you to call me? A pause. Tessa, don't be like that. Then Aunt Patty mailed a Hallmark card about forgiveness. Then Kyle texted, Dad's been really down. He just wants to see his granddaughter. Can you cut him some slack? I sat there reading all of it and noticed the timing. Monday, Jolene. Wednesday, Mom. Thursday, Patty's card. Friday, Kyle, not random, coordinated. Not one of them mentioned the document. They wanted me softened up first. Grateful, sentimental, ready to sign before I understood what I was signing. The next Sunday, I brought Grandma Ruth's IRA statement to Richard. After dinner, we spread it across the dining room table. He adjusted his glasses and studied it. This is substantial, he said. How substantial? He looked up. About $280,000. I felt the number like a drop in my stomach. And my dad wants me to sign it over. That would be my guess. He likely wants you to disclaim your beneficiary status. If you do, the money passes to the contingent beneficiary. My father. Almost certainly. Can he force me? No, I looked at Marcus. What happens to his retirement if I don't sign? Richard folded his hands. If your father structured his retirement around receiving these funds, then without them, his plan collapses. We're talking years of additional work. Marcus let out a slow breath. He built his retirement plan around money that wasn't his. Richard nodded. He assumed Tessa would hand it over. Because she always had. A few weeks later, against my better judgment, I agreed to let my father come to Nora's first birthday party. Maybe I was giving him a chance. Maybe I was testing him. Maybe part of me still wanted one clean, decent moment. 15 guests, Backyard party, pink frosting, balloons tied to the mailbox. Simple, they arrived together, all of them, Gary, Jolene. My mother, Kyle, 3 aunts, like a delegation. The first hour was civil. Gary held Nora awkwardly, like he was handling something fragile and unfamiliar. Jolene took pictures. Kyle ate too much cake. My aunts hovered near the drink table pretending everything was normal. And then, just before we cut the birthday cake, my father stood up. He tapped his plastic cup with a fork. The yard went quiet. "I just want to say how proud I am of my daughter," he began. My stomach dropped. "And how grateful I am that we can all be here together today. Family is everything." Jolene nodded solemnly. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "I believe in second chances," he said. "And I hope this is a new beginning for all of us." Then he looked straight at me. "Tessa, I know you'll do the right thing." And with that, he reached into his sport coat, pulled out a manila envelope, and placed it on the table next to the cake knife. "Just a quick signature, sweetheart, then we can all move forward." Every eye in that yard turned to me, Marcus's coworkers, his friends, his parents, people who had no idea what was happening. It was staged perfectly, public enough to pressure me, sentimental enough to shame me. He believed I wouldn't say no in front of witnesses. I looked at the envelope, then at him. Then at my daughter reaching for a balloon string in Marcus's arms. And I said calmly, "Not here, not today. This is my daughter's birthday." My father smiled the way people do when they're trying not to lose control in public. "Of course," he said lightly. "We'll set up a proper meeting." But Jolene leaned toward my mother and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "I told you she'd stall." I heard every word. I said nothing. I just picked up the cake knife, cut Nora's cake into even squares, and served every person there a slice, including my father. "Cake?" I asked, holding out his plate. He took it. He had no choice. The party ended at 4. By 4:30, everyone was gone. Marcus put Nora down for a nap, and I sat at the kitchen table with my phone, looking at the picture I had secretly taken of the document inside the envelope while my father was in the bathroom. The next morning, I drove to Richard's house. He looked at the photo and said immediately, "This is a beneficiary disclaimer." "What does that mean?" "It means if you sign it, you voluntarily give up your status as primary beneficiary. The full account passes to the contingent beneficiary." My father, "Yes, so if I sign, he gets all of it." "Correct, and if I do, it stays yours." I sat there quietly. "What happens to his retirement if I refuse?" Richard took off his glasses. "If he's relying on this account to retire early, then without it, his plan is over. He cannot replace this easily. It likely adds years to his working life." I didn't decide right away. I want to be honest about that. For 3 days, I sat with it. If I signed, the pressure would stop. He would get the money, disappear again, and I would never have to fight this battle anymore. If I didn't sign, I knew exactly how they would frame it. Not, Gary built his future on money that wasn't his. No. It would be, Tessa ruined her father's retirement. I sat on the back porch after Nora went to sleep, a cup of tea cooling in my hands, and thought about my grandmother squeezing my hand in that recliner. "Don't let anyone tell you it belongs to them." I thought about the text, about the wedding, about the birthday ambush, about 29 years of saying yes, and the one time I said no, just once. And how quickly he erased me. I looked out at the dark yard and said it out loud. "I'm not signing." Not because I wanted revenge, because I was done being predictable. My father arranged a meeting for Thursday morning at 10 o'clock at his lawyer's office in downtown Lancaster. He called the night before to confirm. "Quick meeting," he said. 30 minutes. "Then maybe lunch." "I'll let you know," I said. Thursday morning at 10:05, I was at home in my kitchen. Nora was in her bouncer kicking at a stuffed giraffe. Coffee was brewing, my phone buzzed. "Gary, we're here, where are you?" I took a sip of coffee and set the phone face down. At 10:12, Tessa. At 10:18, Jolene texted, "Your father is sitting here waiting for you." "Don't do this." At 10:20, we're all waiting. I could picture it, my father in his good shirt, Jolene with her purse on her lap. The lawyer with a neat stack of papers and a pen laid exactly where my signature should go. They had planned the morning around one assumption, that I would show up, because I always had. Because I always folded, because I was Tessa, and Tessa said yes. I picked up my phone, opened the thread, and typed 4 words. I am not signing. I hit send. Then I set the phone down and went back to my coffee. Later, Kyle told me what happened in that conference room. My father read the text and just stared at it. Jolene leaned over and said, "What did she say?" He turned the phone toward her. She read it. Then she looked at the lawyer. "That's it," she said. 4 words. The lawyer glanced at the screen, closed the folder, and clicked his pen shut. "Without her signature," he said, "we cannot proceed." My father called me 3 times after that. I didn't answer. Then the texts came. "Tessa, please, this is serious. Can we at least talk about this? I'm your father. You're going to regret this." I didn't respond. He disowned me in 6 words. I answered in 4. And honestly, that was generous. That evening, Marcus came home and found me on the couch with Nora asleep on my chest. "Did you go?" he asked. "No, did you tell him?" 4 words. He sat down beside me. "How do you feel?" I looked down at my daughter. "Done," I said. "I feel done." The fallout was immediate. According to Kyle, the lawyer explained it that same afternoon. Without my signature, the IRA remained in my name. My father could not access it, could not redirect it, could not contest it. Grandma Ruth had locked it down by naming me directly. Gary had planned to retire at 60. He was 58. His whole plan had been built around 3 things: Social Security, a small factory pension, and Grandma Ruth's IRA. Without the IRA, the numbers didn't bend. They broke. The lawyer told him he would need to work at least 7 more years to make up the gap. 7 years, at 58, with bad knees, a bad back, and a factory job that had already cut his hours once. He went back to work the following Monday, not in his old role that had already been filled. He took a lower-paying line supervisor position, working longer hours for less money, reporting to a manager 15 years younger than he was. Jolene didn't take it well. She had apparently been counting on early retirement too: travel, slower days, freedom before 50. That future disappeared with one unsigned document. "Can't we sue?" she asked the lawyer. Kyle said the lawyer didn't even blink. "On what grounds?" he said. "The account was never his." The calls started again after that, and now they sounded different. No warmth. No Tessie, no soft regret, just panic wearing the clothes of guilt. My mother called first. "What have you done?" she demanded. "Your father is devastated. He'll figure it out. This isn't about your feelings anymore. This is about his future. It's about Grandma Ruth's money, the money she left to me." Silence. "Then you're being cruel." "No," I said. "I'm being honest." Kyle called the next day. "You're really going to let Dad lose everything over a grudge?" "It isn't a grudge," I said. "It's a decision." "Same thing." "No, a grudge is wanting someone to suffer. A decision is refusing to keep participating." That stopped him. Aunt Patty called crying. "Your grandmother would never have wanted this." "My grandmother named me directly, Aunt Patty. She chose me." Patty went quiet, and for the first time I think it hit her. This hadn't been an accident. Grandma Ruth had known exactly what she was doing. Aunt Brenda called too, the same aunt who told me before my wedding that Grandma Ruth would be ashamed of me. This time her voice was smaller. "Did Ruth really leave it to you directly?" "She did. Not to Gary." "No." Long silence. "I didn't know that," she said. "You didn't ask," I replied. She hung up. 3 weeks later, my father called one last time. It was after 9. Nora was asleep. Marcus was watching baseball in the living room. I was loading the dishwasher. I almost let it ring out. But I answered, "Tessa." "Hi, Dad." His voice sounded worn down. No nickname, no charm, no strategy. "I made a mistake," he said. "I shouldn't have sent that text." "Which text?" I asked. "The one where you disowned me, or the one asking for my signature?" He went quiet. "Both," he finally said. I leaned against the counter. Part of me, the younger part, the girl who still remembered algebra homework and weekend drives to Grandma Ruth's, wanted to soften. But the rest of me had spent 2 years learning not to fold. Then you understand why I can't do this. I'm your father, Tessa. You chose not to be, he breathed into the line. For 2 years, I said, you chose Jolene's version of me over a 30-second phone call. You let Mom and Kyle and 3 aunts attack me without correcting any of them. And then you came back, not because you missed your daughter, but because you needed her signature. He didn't deny it. He just stayed quiet. I hope you figure out retirement, I said. I really do. But I'm not your backup plan. Another silence. Then he said very softly, "Good night, Tessa." I hung up. Marcus looked in from the living room. You okay? I smoothed the dish towel flat over the oven handle and said, yeah, I'm okay. And for the first time, I meant it. Here's what happened after that. My father stayed at the factory. His retirement at 60 disappeared. His financial advisor told him 65 at minimum, maybe 67, depending on the market and his health. Jolene started doing the math and realizing her version of the future had vanished too. The arguments began. According to Kyle, one night she said, if you hadn't sent that text, none of this would have happened. And my father snapped back. You told me to send it. Funny how fast people rewrite history when the consequences show up. My mother felt it next. For years, my father had quietly been helping with her health insurance through his plan. When the money pressure hit, he cut that off too, just like that. No long conversation, no compassion, no grace. 3 weeks later, my mother texted me, I should have stood by you, 5 words. I read them sitting on the nursery floor while Nora slept in her crib, and I didn't answer. Not because I wanted her to hurt, but because apologies that arrive only after consequences do not land the same way as apologies that cost something. Kyle surprised me. After my father cut him off financially too, he moved into a tiny studio apartment in Reynoldsburg and learned very quickly what adulthood actually costs. He called me in December. Snow on the ground. Nora crawling across the carpet trying to eat a sock. Tessa, he said, I need to say something. I waited. I'm sorry. No excuses, no but just that. I was a coward, he said. I knew Dad was wrong, and I went along with it because it was easier. Because he was paying for things. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth. I sat there in silence for a long time. Then I said, I appreciate you saying that. I'm not asking you for anything, he said. I just wanted you to hear it from me. That mattered, a lot. We're not close now, not the way siblings in movies suddenly become close after one phone call. But we text, a recipe, a funny video, a photo of his apartment. Small things, real things. He was the only one who apologized without attaching a request. That matters more than people think. As for my aunts, they vanished. No more lectures, no more group texts. No more righteous little verdicts. And I didn't chase them. I didn't have to, because the truth has a way of traveling on its own. My father had spent the year before all this talking to everyone, neighbors, bowling league guys, church people, friends at the VFW, about his early retirement plan. When that plan suddenly turned into 7 more years on a factory floor, people asked questions. And Gary was never a good enough liar to hold a collapsing story together. So little by little, the real version got out. He disowned his daughter by text the day before her wedding, didn't speak to her for 2 years. Then came back only when he needed access to money that had never belonged to him. Turns out, when people finally hear the whole story, selfish daughter stops being such a convincing title. 6 months after the unsigned document, here's where things stand. I still don't speak to my father. I don't hate him. I don't wish anything bad on him. I just don't have room in my life for someone who only remembers I exist when he needs something signed. Jolene and I have said nothing to each other since Nora's birthday. That feels correct. My mother and I are still paused. Her text, I should have stood by you, still sits in my phone. Maybe one day I'll answer it. Maybe I won't. But if I do, it'll be because I'm ready. Not because anyone pressured me into being ready. Kyle and I are rebuilding slowly, very slowly. And the IRA, it's still in my name, untouched, growing. I haven't taken out a penny. That money is Nora's college fund now. That's what I decided. The woman who kept butterscotch on her counter and gave away tomatoes in paper bags is going to pay for her great-granddaughter's education. That feels right. Every Thursday, I still see Dr. Adler. Last week she asked me, "Do you feel guilty?" And I said, "No, I feel sad that I had to choose, but I would make the same choice again." Because here's what I finally learned. People love saying *** family is everything ***. Maybe it is when family treats you like you matter. My father didn't lose his retirement because I refused to sign a paper. He lost it because he built his future on the assumption that I would always surrender mine, that I would always say yes, always drive the 2 hours, always buy the gift, always smooth it over. Always rearrange my life, always absorb the cost, because that's what Tessa does. I spent 29 years being the daughter who said yes. And all it took was one no to show me what I was actually worth to them. Here's the truth. When someone only reaches out because they need something from you, that isn't love. That's an invoice. My father didn't want a relationship. He wanted access. Jolene didn't want reconciliation. She wanted the story to turn back in her favor. My mother didn't want peace. She wanted stability. And my aunts didn't want justice. They wanted to feel righteous without doing the work of finding out what was true. Every one of them had 2 years to pick up a phone and say, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Tell me what happened." Nobody did. They came back when the money ran out, and Grandma Ruth knew. When she squeezed my hand in that recliner and told me not to let anyone claim what was mine, she wasn't just talking about the account. She was talking about my peace, my time, my dignity. My right to say no and not be punished for it. She left me that money because she knew one day someone in this family would try to take something I wasn't willing to give, and she wanted me protected. Today is Sunday. I'm sitting on the back porch of our little house in Westerville. The yard is small, maybe 40 feet to the fence, but Nora treats it like a national park. She's out there right now poking at a patch of dirt with a stick like she's conducting official field research. Marcus is at the grill arguing with charcoal. Richard and Patricia came over 20 minutes ago, Richard with a 6-pack of root beer, Patricia with homemade coleslaw. They're at the patio table watching Nora dig in the dirt. This is my family now, not the biggest, not the loudest, but every single person here chose to be here. No one was guilted, no one was manipulated, no one showed up with a manila envelope. Nora runs over with muddy fingers and grabs my knee. "Up," she says. So I lift her into my lap. She smells like sunscreen and grass and something sticky I choose not to investigate too closely. I kiss the top of her head and whisper, "You know what Grandma Ruth used to say?" She blinks at me, unimpressed. She used to say no is a complete sentence. Nora has no idea what I'm talking about. She immediately reaches for my iced tea. I move it out of reach and laugh. Someday I'll teach her what that means, that she's allowed to have boundaries, that she can love someone and still say no. That peace is worth protecting. That chosen silence is not the same thing as being silenced. My name is Tessa Mayers. I'm 31 years old. I said 4 words, and my father's retirement plan fell apart. But I didn't say them to punish him. I said them because, for the first time in my life, I meant them. If this story hit home for you, if it made you angry or relieved or just quietly seen, tell me in the comments. And if you know someone who needs to hear that they are allowed to say no to family, share this with them. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this. I'm Tessa. And I'm glad you were here.